Getting drunk under the table by my great aunt. Pickle Pete here. Welcome back to part two of this series where I go over some of my favorite stories that happened to me in Europe. Sit back, relax, and let's get into it. I was like an old man father, throat clear. By the time we arrived in Dublin, we were shot and felt rested at the same time. Because the airline we took was new and cheap and weird and at a weird time, we were able to lay down fully, as there wasn't too many passengers in there, and take a good solid nap. Looking back on this, it was a risk to start and take that airline from the beginning, but it worked out in the end. Luckily, it was fine. Anyway, we were heading into Dublin, and all I could see was green. It was 9 a.m. their time. We got there early, way ahead of schedule, but it was all ended up ruined as the pilot came out, said something in Icelandic over the speaker, then first in English that the stairs were broken. Whatever, Kevdog and I sit around and wait again. Another 30 minutes go by and the speaker comes up, says the same thing, and I'm like, huh. I joked with Kev, I bet the stairs are broke. He goes on in English and repeats, attention all passengers, but the stairs have been broken. The pilot said, classic. Anyway, we get off the plane, say goodbye to the Icelandic plane attendant, and headed our way on to meet my great aunt for the first time. The first meeting we had was funny because we knew what they looked like a little bit, and we were quite easy to see with our massive backpacks. They knew the second they saw us. After giving them a big hug and luggage and genuinely meeting them for the first time, which was great, we unwrapped our giant plastic bag because we covered up our backpacks with plastic saran wrap so no belt buckles or anything would get ripped off. And we find them, and it was a warm welcome. It was great. Now we headed off to their home, which was about 20 minutes away from the airport. They gave us a great Irish breakfast. Now, this is where the drinking begins. It started off with an Irish whiskey. There were tea, cloves, honey, great 9 a.m. pick me up, but genuinely was awesome. No sarcasm. The breakfast consisted of sunny side up, eggs, hash brown, Irish pancakes, which were a lot thinner, and different types of sausages. After a quick power nap, our bellies full when we woke, they insisted on giving us a tour of their town, or should I say tour. And on a side note, my great aunt's garden and home are both beautiful. Hopefully, I put a photo up right there. But every square inch was just filled with something. Anyway, by the tour of our town, I mean bar hopping. Yes, sir. As we said goodbye to their pup Lola and hopped in the car, excuse me, to take shelter from the rain. I sat on the driver's seat, or at least where I thought it would be in America. In Ireland, everything was backwards, and it drove my brain crazy. On our first stop was their favorite local pub, which was on a hill, and some of the priciest houses were there. After that, we went to another pub, a cafe, the Doghouse Cafe. Kev Dog was a big fan, as Doghouse is another nickname we gave him throughout high school. As the rain fell on the tin roof of the car, we drove to the top of the hill, which is right by a cliff. I laughed at the no driving off cliff sign, as I personally have never seen one in my life. But we learned that a big issue here is actually quite sad, and I felt terrible about saying this afterwards. John made a comment that people do actually literally drive their cars off a cliff and commit suicide, and John had lost a close friend. Now I seem like a complete asshole. I felt terrible. Anyway, as we made our descent into the lower parts overlooking the harbor, we passed a vape vending machine. I kid you not, guys, it was wild. We were at our final pub for the day, where we overlooked the beautiful water and saw Ireland's Eye. The weather kind of cleared up a bit. Ireland was a lot smaller and greener compared to the USA, but the people there were all very welcoming. From the start, any pub we went to, people were interested in us and curious. Kev Dog had a great conversation with the man in German. in one of the old taverns. We putz back home in their small, fuel efficient car and ended the day with fish and chips, along with an overly large sized couple of Budweiser they kindly gave us. One thing that they thought was weird, we didn't have a favorite type of beer yet due to our drinking age in America. Although I have consumed more alcohol than the average 40-year-old by the time I'm legalized allowed to drink. That is a truth. Our next day was our big day. We were set on Dublin. With a Guinness tour at 12:30, John took us to the park, or should I say the park, to kill some time. John had a cane and couldn't walk too far, so he sat and drank some coffee in the nice castle area. It was around 10:30 now, which actually used to be the Guinness old family estates. As we explored the park and learned about the previous mansion of the Guinness family, an hour or so goes by, and he asks a famous quote here: "You want a cup of coffee or a beer?" And it was 10:30, not p.m., a.m. We didn't care, and his response was, "Well, you can only drink so much coffee." As he drives us into Dublin over the O'Connell Bridge that my Nana back in the day told me to take a leak off of in honor of my grandfather, who apparently did so back in the day. It was a very busy bridge, and you would probably get arrested nowadays. I looked around. You would think that the city would be very busy. I envisioned like New York City busy, but it was rather calm. I was expecting the traffic look like Boston, New York City, but it was the complete opposite. Excuse me again. Ugh. John parked the car in a construction zone where we clearly did not have permission to go, but the Irish way let him, and he said, "We'll only be in a minute just to get a quick pint." The taverna wasn't even open for regular customers. John is just this big baller, and it was like he knew the owner or something. He was just breaking every rule possible, parking the construction. Like I don't know how you would physically park there. Like the car should have gotten towed instantly, but it just didn't. It's still a city. It's still busy, and the pub wasn't even open, and he just opened it himself. Baller. He was an absolute beast of a human, and made sure we knew our way around the city. Showing us where Trinity College was, the bus we were supposed to take. After that, waiting for our tour time to start by taking photos with the toucan Guinness mascot outside. It was time to start the tour. John headed off after the pub, and we walked to the Guinness place ourselves. But that guy, stud baller, love the man. Anyways, the place was one of the tallest buildings in Dublin. As Kevin and I were busy learning, but mostly shooting the shit, we got to learn how to pour our own glass of Guinness, which is a very important skill that everyone should learn, and it helped us throughout the rest of our trip. We rose to the top of the building as we overlooked the city, and I could see all of it. It was great. Then we met a man named Harry, the same age, 19, just working up at the bar. Harry wanted to be a musician, specifically a guitarist. Also, he wanted to get out of Ireland, so it was just too small for him, which is understandable. He really likes amusement parks, kind of random. Unfortunately, Ireland didn't have anything too crazy. This is what we learned, where we learned through about in general how the others pictured the U.S. from a georog, G, whatever the map looks like standpoint. The Northeast, we have Massachusetts and Boston. Below that is all New York City. Below New York, we have Florida. And after that, the whole west side of America is Texas, then California. There aren't any other states. That's all that's all I genuinely thought, which was crazy. And this was funny to me, as Jack has never gone to the USA, but we talked to him and we convinced him. Kev Dog and I sat for like a good hour or so learning about what it was like to grow up in Dublin. Everything was a lot closer together than their schools, their houses. Maybe we just do things bigger in America. But as we wrapped up our final thoughts and exchanged socials, we left and were just barely making it onto the bus to the Book of Kells at Trinity College. It was our first time paying in euros and our last time on a double decker bus. I'm a big anti. They have these tour buses that go around. I hate those. Just travel on your own. As we waited around to meet up with a lady named Ellie, who's possibly somehow related to me. She works for the University of Trinity, which was the equivalent of like Harvard. It's a hard school to get into. After doing some push ups in the green grass, she spotted us like a hawk. Even though I thought I would see her first, as said in her words, it was very easy to find you guys. You look very American. Hey, what's that supposed to mean? We laughed and she gave us free tickets into the museum, which was golden to see the Book of Cows. As we walked through, we weren't super interested in reading all the specifics in the articles. As I am Irish, I used my Irish privilege to take a photo of the book. Little crime there. No. Although they weren't exactly sure what the meaning was, they did seem awesome. And the library was just stunning, straight out of like a Harry Potter movie. I joked to Kev as everyone was walking in silence. Hey, Kev, you definitely be a Hufflepuff. No, Ravenclaw, he said. Nah, bro, definitely a Hufflepuff. Wait, actually, I could see you as a Ravenclaw. I feel like I'm a Gryffindor. There's a lot of random people laughed at our idiocracy, and it won't be the last time. We were amazed for the little bit just looking up at the books in their glory. But after a good 15 minutes, we decided that it was enough, and we had a bunch of photos and decided it was time for us to find some bars. As we were jumping from bar to bar, drinking a couple more of the local brews, we ran into our first hostile NPC. Simply walking. He was like, "Hey, buddy, you look like a Trumpy," like a Donald Trump supporter. I was like, "What?" And this was like a lengthy NPC character. As I moved my red baseball cap from the frontwards facing position to the back, he knew I meant business. Kev kind of got up in the kid's face and asked, like, what was he thinking? But I think he realized Kev could pop his skull with his bicep. So he walked away pretty quickly. He was with two other guys too, and we gave him a nice quick little shoulder as we walked by, practically sending him flying to the ground. It wasn't like this crazy scuffle, but like, he was running up to me and then Kev gave him a little shoulder. And his two other goons just kind of walked away. They were shorter. Definitely younger than us, but it was funny. Probably like 16 or 19. And this was one of the first hostile NPCs we encountered on the way. As we continued through the city, got some grub, and accurately decided to get some food at a bar. We didn't want to go into like any like mainstream bar. We wanted to go. Oh yeah, we didn't want to go to any bar. We wanted to go to Temple Bar. This is a good story. The only problem was our navigational skills. We're a zero. We're still learning. This is our first city. We got a lot to go to. So we proceeded to ask strangers, but I think we were pronouncing the name wrong because a lady looked at us in disgust in her Irish accent and said, "Oh, it's down that alley, but I don't think you lads should go down there." We ended up in Tempest Bar, which was a strip club. Sorry, random lady. The hunt continued. After taking a photo of Firefighter Kev in what I thought was Temple Bar a couple of times, finally we found it. The place was so packed, we were more than happy with just our photo. After we checked out some other bar and left a couple of Guinnesses deep. I swiped the coaster too. I did this in every single bar or restaurant, kind of as a little souvenir. I went on the trip and I had all 127 of them. Crazy. A lot of beer was drank this trip. Eventually, we got the Dart, which was their version of a train station, back to where my aunt lived, and continued on back, hearing the stories of my Nana. Walking around, she always described it to be very big. Although it was for a 19-year-old, we finished exchanging stories about the day and hit the hay. The next day was Firefighter Kev's big day. We went to Dublin Fire Brigade as my great aunt was the neighbors of the chief. And it was so nice of her to go out of the way to plan this. She didn't have to do this at all. Truly kind. And Kev's wanted to be a firefighter since he was 3. So he loved looking at the ins and outs of this place. We got a good tour of the place and saw the station. The best part was their garden with quotes, which essentially was a bunch of weeds, but they claimed it so because the town was trying to build more houses and take over. What I learned is that many people live in Dublin, and it's very convenient. And there are some general members of the community going through who were ever so friendly to welcome 2 random people from America to show them around. Pretty much the thing with the garden is the town just wanted to take their property, and they're like, nah, it's a garden. Anyways, Kev Dog was ecstatic, but the tour got cut short. Unfortunately, someone was coding out. If you guys don't know what that means, it's having a heart attack, which is terrible. But they're just so used to it, that's their job, it's their day to day life. And they headed out. It wasn't their first rodeo. Many of the fire brigaders uh, was the same, but different. So fire patrol and fire brigade are different. One difference they had is they go out on patrol versus in the U.S. they stay in the stations. Then when they go to a call, and they all nerded out about the details until eventually they left to go get some help with someone with a heart attack in the calmest and utmost professional way. After going back for some lunch, we headed over to the local town's big park. Here, Kev Dog took out his camera and started taking some photos, became Mr. Photographer for the day. I followed and also took some good shots at the park. It was nice. Everything was green. Uh, I felt like the grass in the US is just yellow or not completely green, but I want you to think of a green clover or just put that everywhere. It was insane. Instead of weeds, their version of weeds were like these nice little daisies or buttercups or clovers due to such high rainfall. After checking out the rose garden, Kev Dog and I decided we got enough pics with his camera and headed off to the end of the park where they had a little pull-up bar and we hit a quick little chest calisthenic workout. One of our first and sadly last. We didn't really have too much time to work out on this trip. But we did do a lot of walking. And on the mile walk back, actually, we ran into a man. He was probably in his 40s or 50s, just cussing those fucking kids. We stopped and we talked to him, and he was involved in the local community, and a bench was just placed there and just been put in, and someone already vandalized it. What they did is they took a coin and they just like glued it. he was pissed. It's a pretty rotten trick if you ask me, but as we made it back to the lollipop tree, it's where Francis lived. We called it the lollipop tree. It's a way to tell the houses apart. We had one final outing with the whole Irish gang at their local community center, which had 3 bars. It was quite the hoot and the holler, and it was so close you could crawl on all four if needed be. It wasn't too busy on a Sunday night, but we definitely had our fill. And let me tell you, the Irish know how to drink. We exchanged a couple of pints, and by a couple, I mean quite a bit, talking to Francis and John about politics. And for some reason, they loved to do that. At least Francis did. And it was about like US politics, which really confused me. But John really didn't care. For some of that, just some good old fashioned seafair stories. The man was a professional storyteller, along with the cook. Also, we brought up how the Ukraine war was a big matter in Europe, and it was all over the news in the US, but the US, we haven't really seen too much of it. We were just giving them money, and we put our own stuff on the news. Even today, as I write of this, so obviously this isn't today, but 10/24/22. Wow, that was a while ago. It's 2023, the 11th now. Nothing has really been said since. As I drank one final amazing Guinness, 10 out of 10, we slept and raised, and we were out on our way to the airport as John whipped us back. Good guy. Overall rating of Ireland was 10.5 out of 10. If you guys liked that chapter, getting absolutely plastered with my older Irish relatives who are 4 times older than me, and exploring the city. Hope you guys learned something. If you found this video helpful, make sure to like and subscribe. Coming up next, we have Chapter 3. I actually got roofied in London. This is a crazy story. Yeah. I'll see you guys in the next one.